Whew. Whoa. Whew. Whoo-wee. What a Schmoedown rockers. But, yeah. That was spectacular. Kind of. But, well, you'll understand what I mean when I say this. But, it's still good. It's still a good spectacular. First live vid since the Spectacular 4. It's a step up from that, but weirdly enough, I might be in the minority in saying I kind of liked 5 better. But I'm not even sure if that's accurate. I think it would have been served me better if I was finally had a chance to have just been there, instead of how it let it play out the way it did. Especially when it came to how the mic situation was. I think they set it up so that it didn't overwhelm people. How booming Mark and Christian's voice tends to be, let alone even Ken's. So with the announcements, and at least the mics for the setups for the questions worked out well, but yeah, they had issues. Like, yikes. And, yeah, that was some... It started off pretty interesting. I don't know what that was, but anyways. The whole thing with starting off with the spectacular, which was Bonnie doing her thing. I feel bad for her in that case because it just didn't come off good to me, or at least not great enough. It's possible it came across better. From what I hear, it must have come across better there than it did for us in YouTube land, because the stream said another story than everyone else live. So you guys must have lucked out on something. I don't know, but I feel bad for Bonnie in that case. I was expecting it to be good, and it just didn't come off that way. I don't know why, but yeah. Plus, you could barely hear in the mic. Like it wasn't, the mic was not set up to suit her voice. It was set up clearly when it became pretty clear once Harloff had come out and everything, and I think they wound up trying a little. It almost seemed like Harloff at points was trying too hard to make people enjoy the show. At points that you could tell wasn't working. We'll get to that in a minute. The one match I wasn't expecting to go over extremely well, but despite some of my complaints, I still had fun with it. It's not deterred me from watching it. Just I'm gonna let that come out immediately right off the bat. I have to make that clear. Anything else that might be said? So sorry, Lex. But anyways, it was more the fact that wow, so far, retention, title retention. I do feel bad for. Nooms was putting out. Khan never had a chance in the buzzers. He didn't even get a chance to prove himself there, but I think he did. I think he did what he could. And then Kid came in clutch on one of them to help save their chances. I think they were at least able to get in a situation where they weren't knocked out or TKO'd in terms of King Arthur's match. I figured they mostly did it so that Nooms could have time to breathe and be 100% for his match against Marisol, which was going to be the main event, no matter what. So that was understandable. I had no complaints about that. I was like, I can get behind that. And then we had the Star Wars match, which, I mean, Nikki already, I think, well, the challenge thing was slightly weird, but, and then they try to do something to essentially turn Harper heel, and make the Den heel all of a sudden. I mean, technically still kind of were, but I guess they started to kind of be a little more on the face side. But eh. On it. The only thing is, it's like, okay, it seems that the Den itself as a faction, the way it used to be, because how factions are being run, they had to do something drastic to show the example of how they're going to be handling factions in the future. And it seems, though some of the factions will still remain the way that they once were. So these drafts on all this other stuff that was the sports-oriented side is gone, and they're rebooting and refreshing and bringing back what we used to know and love instead, and letting storyline be more of the dictating factor than, these more sports things, which is going to screw a lot of fantasy people up, that's for sure, because that finally found a way to align itself with the fantasies stuff. So now that just makes that pointless, but which is why I never got into the fantasy, because I knew at some point something was gonna bound to give with that. But just when we finally seemed like we were kind of or at least some of us were willing to get used to it, or at least some of us in the minority, yeah. I was happy to see that they were doing it, though they wound up doing it in a way that seemed silly, in the sense ish. Not so much the Harper part, but Harper and I don't know how they were playing. I'm curious what alternate storylines would have happened if the people that did not win their belts, retain their belts, how those would go over, I guess. I don't know. I would have been more curious about those. I don't, the thing is with, that whole thing was weird. Well, I guess suspects are still going to be suspects up to a point. They haven't really confirmed anything about that with the way the factions are. I'm guessing the ones should remain still the top tier, and it seems because of the way things happened with the one title match that I was hoping for Parker to pull his weight, and it never. And it's probably the biggest bummer for me personally, because I was really bummed, especially at the time of watching it. I didn't get a chance to finish the rest of it until after a wedding I was at, but yeah, it was. But yeah, that was. But then, of course, we have the whole wild, and then of course, if not for having the results happen the way they did, in my case, so the whole some people apparently did. I was the furthest thing from my mind. They hadn't been doing storylines so long, I didn't know what they were gonna really do. I think so. They had enough time to breathe about it, and some people did predict that they were coming back. First, I would have been like, and it probably wouldn't have come off as well. But then they tried to get rid of Dewberry, and then they tried to bring him back. So it was. So basically, Makuga finally comes back. It has been over a year since the retirement match from last season, or at least the previous season prior to this one. So it was. I guess it makes sense, and it was bound to happen. They made sense out of it, and it was bound to happen. So wild berries, and they weren't planning on being any part of any factions. I wasn't expecting that anyway. Given how they were planning on handling that now, there was no need to further showing they weren't planning on having factions be the way they used to be. They might maintain some elements of where they left off with the factions in terms of some people that were involved in the factions. At least those that would be willing to make the flight or drive to LA. So. I'll say it. But anyways, the whole thing was. Oh man, I just can't. This was an insane match. Anyone who says that match-wise, the Intergita match wasn't up to snuff is bullshit. That was the best match as far as I'm concerned. I just wish the results were different, personally. And I'm sure everyone got their memes ready with the Vader no after Parker answered with Vader. I kind of did that with him a little bit, but I also involved in words of encouragement, and I still will say the same thing. I sent to you. You know what it was. So, Parker, if you're watching for some reason. So, thank you. And and speaking also with involving Parker and Kaiser, we'll kind of get into where that might lead into any something, and whether or not that may wind up involving Wit again in the future. So, and how that'll lead to a potential dungeon civil war of a different kind, maybe if even a civil war at all. But yes, the it was a tight match, and it went like sure he missed, and we lucked out that Kalinowski didn't hit his 5 either. So that was so I'd say this match came about the closest to even being remotely on par with the first Cushing Kalinowski match, as far as I'm concerned. So yeah, I mean shit, son. Oh, that was yeah, that was one of those matches. That was kind of intense for the Intergeekdom matches. So, and you know, hopefully he play, and hopefully when Smith works his way back up, when he does come back, uh, yeah, and I. Bob Bear's comeback was needed because I was in a bit of a rut because I was really hoping for Parker to do it because we had our shot again. And he took him a lot longer in sudden death than I even would say Rachel ever did. So there's that as well. So this could be on par with that match. I hope people will look at it as such a match and show that Parker from this point forward still has a shot at being in the champion is a championship worthy player. He's finally had his chance to prove it, even to somewhat prove that, even if the results didn't favor in his way. Anyone who says that he no longer deserves to be in that conversation of elite players at this point, and things are going to get a lot more interesting with that. And then when we get to this one match, this one is more controversial in terms of involving the particular individual that has kind of brought a sense that has brought a big part of the legacy of what has made the Schmoedown, but also what has probably caused some sense of toxicity that has kept people away from the Schmoedown. This was the Outlaws' last ride. And I think that, which honestly to me was about as the best thing they needed to do to allow this thing to grow again. Is for him, is to allow that. Like, we'll see for how long that's going to be, because we know he'll eventually come back. We know it, but for now, this last ride needed to happen for him for now. And he never had that kind of send off retirement. And technically, neither did Riley or Nost, or yet alone even Merle, which kind of came out of nowhere anyway when that happened. But since they had both come back, it kind of sucks even more in the case of Riley, because... And then all of a sudden we already had early retirements that were like unforeseen in a similar sense to what happened with McElhaney last season. And that was basically all of what is the Odd Couple kind of just went away, and it kind of hurt the Stars' chances of being... They were, at least thanks to Janine, lucked out at not being completely dead last. And Janine got to have a great run, and I'm expecting that Janine will be staying with Roxy as a manager for a very, very long time. So long as Janine... And with the way things are handling itself, yeah, I don't know. They aren't planning on having this be as huge as it used to be. I think it'll be more closer in line. They're trying with this... Because before they had announced and made official... Before they did the match, which you could tell both Dan and them were having so much fun with it. And Dan wasn't expecting to not wind up winning. I don't think anybody wasn't expecting Dan to pull the win, given the way how consistent he's been involved in the season. So he's had a little bit more on him, while Roca kind of just didn't hardly do anything until they decided to announce the retirement and wanting to do a one last ride type of match. And then them trying to set up the storyline with that, leading to that him and Merle, which Merle being Merle being like it's a shame it couldn't have been Snyder though, since but you know Snyder had made his retirement as well. And now like we don't have like we lost like three big players before going into this. I think at least one of them will make a more of a return at least that I'd be more excited to and Mark and Drago, but whenever that may be. I wouldn't even mind if Rachel found a way to make a comeback. And so far, apparently, it seems Emma is making a comeback with it, a very small one at that. But I think it's also because I don't think I've heard much of anything on Ven lately, or at least I haven't seen any posts. So I'm wondering if that kind of fell apart, which is kind of sad because that was a decent program for what it was. But oh well. But as far as I'm concerned with the whole thing with that was insane. Was I mean they had some fun with it and it was, but yeah, Rocco apparently got TKO'd to almost to he went as far as he could, and then they tried to do something more storyline oriented to kind of make it look better than the way the match results were, essentially. Even with him trying to make his little speech thing, which, given, yeah, that's some of you. I understand some of you did, and I'm not gonna fault you for it, but given what I've kind of heard throughout this space about him, when he made that comment about that whole fat kid thing, I was just like, what the fuck, dude? Especially knowing certain people who have called him out on his bullshit that have probably dealt with that more throughout their entire life. I'm not picking or saying names, not that they should even remotely matter, because they should not be named, honestly, but yeah, that's how I... But I mean, I know some people that are, and I want to make it clear, I'm not there. Just because I have some issues with Outlaw doesn't, at this point, knowing some of that doesn't mean I have issues with everyone that has any involvement in Outlaw Nation. Because some of you have been and are somewhat in some capacity having still been loyal, have somewhat been nice to me, and to those that have been, I thank you very much. Or at least that I'm aware of, at least, So, and I appreciate very much. You people doesn't mean that you as a person are bad. Don't confuse it as that, please, because that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying, and it's just some things that some people just have that thing about them where they use and bring about that kind of toxicity, and I think Rokas needed to leave that. And plus, it didn't help when, half of the people, it was a half-hearted chant. Not everybody did. And the half that didn't knew were probably the ones that knew about the bullshit. And you could hear that Harloff himself was forcing it by having to be the one to cheer it. I was like, what the fuck is happening? With that one was just insane. Other than that, I mean, everything else that was going on involving it, aside from that little comment that I had stated, which I'm sure maybe he did. Maybe there is some facts to it. I don't know myself, so don't quote me on that entirely. But good on Dan anyway. I think he needed a win. He needed more of a win since he was actually still he needed something to go into next season, We'll see if the luck works in his favor this time, because if not, the fact that Dan didn't, most of the usual people that would be in the conversations for the titles aren't in the conversation for the titles, with the exception of IG, it seems, where there is a specificity because we actually had some veteran players that proved their worths. In Parker finally getting his chance to finally prove it. It's a shame the way the results, the end results were, like I said, but you can't be upset about that kind of performance. And then we got to the main event where Downtown Griffey Nooms versus Marisol McKee. It wasn't a bad match by any means. It's definitely one of the highlights of the night, but it wasn't the highlight I think we were hoping it would be, sadly. Especially since it had to, I mean, especially within that it was going to have to follow up an Inner Gita match that went to freaking sudden death. That was that back and forth and that tight. Granted, sure, the couple of the questions they might have, they went deep into the questions, even if they missed a couple simultaneously. It's still, I mean, it was still went a while, so. So I mean, it went up to this end score of that was 30-29. So that's not it's not bad to me. That's a pretty good score as far as I'm concerned, even for a championship. So yeah. And then there's, at least somewhat statistically, take that for what it is. But yeah, it was just a. And I love your jacket choice, by the way, Kaiser. If you didn't know that already. But yeah, Wild Bears coming back was nice. Makuga finally decided to make his comeback, to do his thing. They're probably just going to try to answer and just bring the sense of fun back. And I think bringing back Wild Bears was a good idea, or at least given what had happened after this match and on my end how the end results were. Yeah. I needed the Wild Bears coming back the way it was handled. If the circumstances were different in the last match before this reveal, it might have been a different story where they basically just him and left him out cold only for them to try to get only for like a secretly Makuga hiding somewhere coming out and then bringing back Wild Berries. So I don't know how Makuga's wife is going to be now about them coming back, or if this was just for a brief thing to make people happy about them being back. Don't know for how long or if it will matter. I mean, since he's focusing more on storyline stuff, that's the only thing about it that will work. Because that's where they thrived on, because they were never going to thrive with the sports angle here. Here, if you know, hell, we might get I'd be happy if we got that in a Real Rejects too. That was a fun live event match. Let's see that happen again. I'd be down for that. As long as it's just as fun as that one was, I'd be down. We'd be down. Anyways, and then of course going back again to main event, and then yeah, of course Dan also being the better man in his little match. I mean, now he's 21 and something. At least that record part of things is there, not so much faction points or anything, which I think faction points aren't even going to be a thing anymore, I don't think. So at this point, I think it's just going back to storyline stuff, and then I think all the digital stuff is going to just push itself, which is even funnier because I think one of the members that was in the den wound up in the FCL anyway, so I guess they had to make sense of that somehow, I guess, when they didn't have to. But yeah. It was nice. And I'm happy I wish I would have had, and I'm bummed I didn't get to be out of there. And what bummed me more was what was going to happen at the end of this entire event. They needed something huge. And sadly, the one thing that happened that I think everyone was hoping to finally get a proper answer about that never happened. Not really, at least. because I thought he was supposedly there, according to Harloff, was Oyama cashing in his title shot, and he never did. So that still is left up in the air. I don't know what he or the rest of Swag's gonna do about it. Or if it even matters at this point. All I know is it led to Chandra coming out basically with all the Joker, the Jared Leto Joker tattoos on him, and the way he looked, even with the long hair, he may as well look like fucking Takashi 6ix9ine. Oh my god! When he started his rant, I literally took my headphones out and was just waiting to be done. I did already, and I was already trying to keep away from chats, but I wanted being spoiled a great moment and way it was handled and executed, even with having slightly known it happened. Boys back, bitches. He beat it enough that he's coming back. He's gonna kick fucking Chandra's thing. He's gonna clean up the mess he left behind by kicking Chandra's fucking ass. To fucking God he does. At least as far as Schmoedown stuff. I'm sure he might actually be a much nicer dude when you get past all this other stuff. At least I'm hoping. You know? But one could only hope, you know. But in case of the Schmoedown itself, you know where I am about you. We'll just leave it at that. But that's your job, so it's whatever. But yeah, he came out and he did his speech, even saying things I've even had to say myself. So it made it to where I don't even have to say them here. It's almost like I've helped him in some way with some of his rhetorics. It was quite lovely, and it bummed me that I wasn't there. And like just like what happened with Spectacular 4 for me, it pains me more that I wasn't there, live there, to experience another moment with my boy again. But it was a great moment when it happened nonetheless. It's probably one of the few things involved, aside from certain point in the match itself, of Spectacular with IG. But yeah, and then all of a sudden you get the awkward but still very awesome embrace between Kaiser and Smash at the end of his little thing, and basically setting up for the final grudge match between him and Chandra to finally settle things once and for all. And I hope yeah. And with Kaiser embracing him, it was fucking glorious. Dungeon needed a good moment to make up for that loss to me, and that was the icing on the cake for me. That was enough that I would definitely say it at least succeeded in being better as an overall package for me. And plus the reboot thing, I don't know what's the deal with the logo. I don't know if I said that already, but anyways. Not the theme. The theme makes sense, but the logo, maybe fix that a little bit. It just kind of doesn't look that great. It's a hot take, but it's just me. I don't even know who's involved now, because I know Eric's not involved anymore, so I don't know how they are going to be handling edits and stuff again. I'm a little leery about that, because some of the way they've been handling the rest of the digital matches when they could have had these awesome moments that could have happened in the digital that would have been good that aren't in there. And it's kind of a shame because they cut out good moments that didn't need to be cut out. You know, that could have been funny and I could have used for the dungeon in the pages. Been great, you know, but whatever. Well, I'm just glad the digital's over and now we can finally officially go back to doing things in the studio and then all this stuff again. And I can't wait for next season for that reason. I'm gonna say maybe it will potentially be better than these past 2 seasons. What we will get, if some of Spectacular is any indication of that. But yeah. Good job pulling that win, Dan. You needed it. Oh, man. Smash, welcome back, buddy. Welcome back. I'll hold off. I might do the Smash Cancer shirt. I don't know, but I'll hold off on this shirt for a little bit. On taking this shirt, having this shirt off for a little bit. If you don't beat Chandru. That's the deal now. That's going to be the deal this time. I'm leaving the leeway because of what you've had to go through, man. That's why. All right? I want to clarify that, so that's why I'm keeping the shirt thing. So, especially since it's going to be a while since I can keep the dungeon shirt. Unless you want to count what happened with the Roka match, but I'm not even sure if I even should. But yeah, with the Griffey, it took something happened where he screwed up in the Nicole Kidman match and didn't think for a second, and it cost him a big 2 points against Marisol, and it left him behind by 4. He did well enough to get himself out of TKO range, to make a championship round, get himself out of TKO range, but it didn't matter because she got the 3 and ended the match. She didn't even get to the 5, so it wasn't as nail-biting. It didn't become the nail-biter it was going to be. The tension was gone and gasped out of the air the moment he missed that 2. If he missed that 2, it was kind of sad enough in himself, and which kind of bummed me. He made his one big old mistake that he didn't need to make, so it is what it is, I guess. I feel bad for the dude. Hell, even commented saying he wishes he did what Marisol had done earlier and lost her matches early before having gone through what she just did here, so which is a shame, but I think he can, but given he still played well enough in his match, I'm hoping he can at least, you know, still make it into like a #1 contendership match, and we'll see if he can finally, you know, get that belt back. Because after this, literally the first, I don't know if it's that big of an accomplishment, Christian, if you think, I feel like there not being any changed hands with the titles is not exactly the best thing to me. I feel like that was, especially, that was kind of the big bummer, I think, for me, because nothing changed, hardly, aside from maybe how they're going to handle factions and stuff. But when it came to like the titles themselves, nothing changed. It was, which I think sort of undermines and underwhelms this as an entire thing, in the sense to where I have to say the digital era's own Spectacular 5 was better. I never thought I'd have to say that. It probably wouldn't have been saying that had it been my first live event experience. If it was a live event experience, I'm sure that might have factored in a little better in my case, if it was, because I didn't get a chance to. I've always had to watch them the way that I've been through the Patreon, and it's clear. Good news is, like I said, it's not deterred me from watching the Schmoedown. I'm still going to stick with it going in next season, and it looks like it'll be better for sure, but I don't know if it's too little too late at this point or not with that, because I think Roka leaving might do better for the league in a way, at least for the time being, and bringing back Wildberries and then Smasher coming back helped a lot. for sure. I think we were eventually expecting him to come back, and now he's back. I'm happy he is, and I can't wait to see him come back in season 9, make the comeback he needs to do to show that why he's still an elite player, you know, and hoping that the IG didn't pass him by and that the cancer didn't completely mess with this, and God, it didn't, because that year was the year Smash got to be the best champion of them all. Something during that one match they had, even though it was digital, Smash won that match between him, Damon, Roka, and Merle. That's some fuck. We had some massive bragging rights in the dungeon, and it's time to bring back some of that OG energy. And Smash is that OG energy we need, man. Don't get me wrong. What energy we did have, at least starting out in this season, I want that and what we had in the OG energy, and if we find a good balance, Dungeon will be unstoppable. Dungeon Master has spoken, and that's why I was bummed, because Parker was our last chance, and that didn't happen. But I can't even be mad at it because it was such a good match and the best match of that night. Oh, man. I wasn't disappointed necessarily at all. Granted, despite even being the big moment that led me to put the shirt back on for a while, it was nice. And I'm gonna have this shirt on a little bit more for a while for Smash. Chandru, you're fucking next. And other than that, spectacular. What it was good enough to say, what a way to end the season on the best of notes you could, given all of the circumstances. But what did you think of the matches? What did you think of Spectacular? Leave a comment below. Let me know. As always, guys, keep it. Links in the description below, as all for my channel, for the dungeon, home of the five-time, or at least still that I know of, 5-time singles belt champion of the world, as well as 2-time team champ, Dangerous Dan Murrow. That I know of. I don't know for how long, and if he'll still be a part of it, or Mara for that matter. But I would love to still have your services, or at least I will. I don't know how that's gonna pan itself out later for storyline purposes, whatever that's gonna be. Oh boy. But yeah, we'll see how Ben's stuff is going to be doing with his new regiment coming in 2 weeks. That's going to be interesting for those patrons. Oh boy. But yeah, that's basically it, guys. What did you think of these? But like I said, with that, and then, if you like this video, ride the like button, thrust if you must. Hit the subscribe button, click that notification bell, and get all notifications to see the rest of my videos. And as always, keep it random, keep it real, keep it rocking. If you smell what the movie trivia Schmoedown Rock, Skybot Entertainment, so on and so forth, is cooking. We Smashers back. Smashers ready. We got you for 30 minutes of playtime. You ain't going. Chandra ain't going nowhere. Yeah. Smash. Take care.